It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. After a 2-week hiatus, we are back talking about Obi-Wan, talking about Daredevil, wrapping up Daredevil Season 1. Can't wait to talk about that finale again. And just talking about our respective vacations and what we've been watching lately. Feel like it's going to be a bit of a more laid back episode, but when we've been off for 2 weeks, I think it's a nice way to reintroduce everyone to what we're all about here. But first, I got to introduce my co-host. He is the woodsman. He is Jacob Martin. Jacob, how was your camping trip?
Oh, it was actually pretty good. We camped at the James River State Park in Virginia. It's just say a half hour away from Appomattox. That was a pretty historic site, Appomattox. That's where the Civil War ended. So pretty historic area where I was at. And it was a really enjoyable camping trip. That state park is right along the James River, so that's mainly a good kayaking spot, and it was a really good time kayaking. We had some hot weather. It was up in the 90s, but kayaking on the river, even though it's really hot, you still get a good breeze, especially when you're kayaking on the far ends of the river. So it was still a very relaxing float when we all did it. We Honestly, we do our own camping, and it's kind of a we kind of glamp a little bit because we have a camper and we're out in the woods, but it comes with water and electric. There's a little bit of cell service, and we got a TV. So we did watch quite a few movies along the way. I'll probably share some of those when we get to the what we've been watching segment. But it was a very enjoyable trip. We got back this past Thursday, and I've pretty much been on vacation this past week. It's been a good load of fun and relaxation. We did another kayaking trip at a nearby lake, which was really awesome. And the day we're recording this Monday, I had a really nice, good Father's Day outing with my dad. We had a nice meal, and we did some putt-putt golfing and had some ice cream and some other good stuff. It was a really enjoyable time. I greatly enjoyed this past week being off, and I'm excited to talk some more with you on this awesome podcast. It was a load of fun, and I'm sure, Ryan, you had a load of fun as well. Tell us about your time with Rachel in Utah.
Yeah, well, before I get to that, I just want to say that day with your dad sounds awesome. Putt putt and ice cream. Jeez, that's like the perfect day right there. Like,
Oh, yeah. It was an
count count
awesome
me
day.
in for, count me in for that. Respectfully, of course, but that sounds amazing. I had a great time out in Utah. Um, I like I've been talking about for some time now. I swam in the Great Salt Lake Open Swim. I did it in 52 minutes and 22 seconds. I did the mile. It was about as good a performance as I could ever ask for. My one regret about the swim was that because how the race starts, just for context, how the race starts is that you start on the beach and you run into the water, and at a certain point, you can't run anymore, so you have to start swimming. And then you turn past a point, and then you start swimming. Well, I was running, and the lake bed, is really slick. And not only that, but the sand is so wet, it feels like you're being dragged into quicksand. So I was running, and it was like I was getting my feet out of there okay. And then as like I got my left foot out, but then I put my right foot down. And as soon as I put my right foot down, I felt myself fell forward, landed face first into the salty water. And it was the most disgusting thing that I've probably ever done in my life. It's just nasty. The salt was in my nose, it was in my mouth. Like as I was swimming, I was literally hawking up loogies as I was swimming. I was like stroke, 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 stroke. So I was literally spitting out the lake as I was swimming in it. But I managed to do it in about as good a time as I could ever ask for, and I'm so incredibly grateful that I did it. I would happily do it again. It was especially fun considering that after the swim, everyone got like unlimited Go-Gurts. The yogurt in like the little like tube where you like rip off the top and you suck it up like that. I was thinking, why do we need Go-Gurt? And they're like, it's the best thing for a salty throat. And yeah, I had a few of them, let's just say, because the blueberry yogurt, woo, I was in paradise, paradise after that. And then, of course, I stayed with my friend Rachel, and it was a really good time. We saw a bunch of local theater shows because both our combined passion is theater. We like going to live theater shows. We saw West Side Story, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and oh shoot, I forgot the last. The last one's probably going to come to me literally as soon as I stop recording.
Didn't you guys see Grease?
Grease, that's the one. Thank you, Jacob. Saw all three, and honestly, all three were really, really good. There's a school of thought that like local theater is like bad for some reason, but as someone who was a part of it for a really long time, there's a passion in local theater that you really can't replicate. Not the national stuff, not the Broadway stuff, and not to take it out on them. They're national and Broadway for a reason. But there's something about like local theater. It's like I said, it's a passion that you can't replicate it. You can't bottle it. It just is, and you just have to feel it in order to be there. And so I guess what I'm getting at with it is that it reignited my passion for like local theater to the point where I found the closest one to me. It's in DeLand. It's about 15 minutes from me. And I think I'm going to start going to some shows as time permits, of course. So the trip really made me reignite my passion for something that I forgot that I had even had to begin with. And I consider that a victory.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And didn't you also say you were going to go to a drive-in for the first time as well?
Yes, we ended up seeing Top Gun. It was my second time, her third time seeing it. And it was honestly a lot of fun. I had a great time with it. Seeing Top Gun Maverick, that's still my favorite movie of the year. I can't believe how good that movie is. Despite seeing it a couple times, I'm like, oh, surely it's going to be. Nope. Even though I know what's coming, I still look forward to it, and it's so well done. And watching it out of like her trunk, because she has an SUV, so we like sat in like her truck SUV. Watching it, it was a really nice experience, and I wasn't sure how I was going to like it. I was thinking, I prefer the indoor stuff, but no, I don't think there's a drive-in close to me. I think the nearest one's in Tampa, which is a way long drive for me, and I love Tampa, but it's like I'm in Central Florida, and that's like closer to the Panhandle, so it's a bit of a drive. But I really had a good time with it. I really had a good time on the trip in general. But there's a part of me that really did miss being home, and I'm glad to be home, back in my routine, back to talking movies with you and just doing all the things that in regularity. It's one of those things where absence makes the heart grow fonder, in that you step out of your routine and you realize, oh, it's actually quite nice. So when you step back in, there's a bit of a refresher. I mean, at least for me anyway. I hope I don't come across as nuts or anything.
Oh no, that's not a problem. Sometimes you have to enjoy the time off to appreciate the other stuff as well. Like sometimes you need to take a break. Like if life gets too busy, you just need to sit back, relax, and enjoy the time you have. And then when you get back, you're ready to get back on what you also love doing at home as well. And that's how I felt. I'm still trying to get back on that grind again that I had before going on vacation. But
Yeah, it's a bit hard. I over like a couple days, I had to upload Obi-Wan reviews because I hadn't uploaded any for the previous episodes. So I felt a little bad that I was like just spamming my channel with Obi-Wan reviews, but I don't think anyone really minded. But we'll definitely cross that bridge when we get there. But Jacob, I think I think it's good a time as any to talk about the stuff that we've been watching lately. So why don't you go first? What have you been watching lately?
Um, while I was on the vacation when we were camping, I watched two of the Lord of the Rings movies while on the vacation. I rewatched Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers. They are still awesome movies. Even on the smaller TV screen we had in the camper, I'm still immersed in the world of Middle Earth, the characters, and the epic story. It's sad that I didn't get a chance to watch Return of the King on vacation, as that's personally my favorite of the trilogy. But the first two chapters are incredible. Like I can spend hours upon hours just watching this story unfold, seeing the incredible spectacle that Peter Jackson brought to screen, seeing these incredibly well fleshed out characters, visual effects that have still aged very well, even 20 years later, and just see just the incredible attention to detail that Peter Jackson brought to the world building and adapting Tolkien's original source material to the big screen. They are both fantastic movies. I dare say the Helm's Deep sequence is definitely up there as one of my favorite battle sequences in any movie. I always get goosebumps watching that sequence, especially when Gandalf and the Rohirrim army come in at the very end and do that epic charge last minute. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. It's an amazing set of movies.
Yeah, that's why I'm so afraid for Lord of the Rings of Power, because
Yeah,
nothing about the photos or anything of the sort, nothing has really stood out to me. I feel like, and when that show does come out, and I will watch it, and if it turns out to be great, then I will happily eat my words. But the Lord of the Rings trilogy was just perfect. It was the sun, the moon, the planets, and all the stars coming together in a perfect alignment. It was Peter Jackson fulfilling his childhood dream of saying, you know what? Someone should make movies based off of these. And then one day he's like, wait, that somebody should be me. That was literally the story of how he read the books and was like, you know what? These would make good movies one day. Someone should do that. And then one day I'm like, maybe I should do it. And he did. And it was fantastic. They're definitely the best movies he's ever going to make. He made an excellent war movie called They Shall Not Grow Old, which I highly recommend everyone check out if you can find it. It's really good. But these are like, this is his coup de grace right here. Nothing that he will do before or after this will ever top it. And I don't think I'm being controversial in saying that. But yeah, to your point, the Helm's Deep scene is it's almost a miracle if you really think about it. From the comedy stuff to Legolas trolling Gimli by saying, "Shall I describe it to you, or shall I get you a box?" Like that's just perfect. And then when it starts raining, and all the elves just like take aim with their bows at them, and Legolas is like, their armor is weak at the neck and below the arm, and then they just start shooting arrows at the Urukai. You're just like, yeah, man, it's so good. And then just your heart sinks when the Urukai runs in with the torch and the bomb, and you're like, oh, there's no way. And you're like, oh no, this is not good.
Yeah,
So
and
it's just,
it gets a good laugh out of me though, because the king's like, "Is this all you could conjure up, Saruman?" And then the bomb comes up. I'm like, "Oh, we spoke too soon."
like, thank God they won, because it would have been like, this is awkward.
Yeah,
famous
it was
famous
getting
last
pretty
words and
intense.
all that.
It's a great mix because you have the big epic stage. There's tens of thousands of Urukai, and you have hundreds of the people of Rohan and the Fellowship, and you got the elves that come in as well, and so they're outnumbered. People are dying left and right, yet there's still glimmers of comedy in there that still makes the sequence just so awesome. Like, toss me! I can't jump any further, but toss me! But don't kill the elf.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, man. This is just like it's like the perfect trilogy. Like
it it
I
is.
can't pick a favorite. They're all excellent.
Yeah, they're all really good movies, and once you start with the first movie, you have to watch the other two. It's like one extended story.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if The Rings of Power turns out to be good, then I will happily say I was wrong. It was actually really good. But I'm sorry, there's just
Yeah,
nothing about the photos or the promo material that just
yeah,
really says that this needed to exist. I mean,
I haven't seen much in the trailers that reminds me of how much I love the original trilogy. I mean, it could be a surprise sleeper hit. And considering Amazon spent like millions and millions and millions of dollars to get this made, I hope it's good because they gotta get their money's worth somehow. I don't want Amazon to go unstable and bankrupt like Netflix currently is, but I don't know. The show's not selling me yet.
yeah, I mean, well, it's Jeff Bezos, so going bankrupt is kind of like, I don't want to say it's completely impossible. I mean, people like to say that, oh, these corporations, they're just controlling everything and they're going to be around forever. Oh, you should have been around like in when the Industrial Revolution kicked in. They were around even longer than that. Like, they're actually quite fragile. So when you think something is too big to fail, just look at the bank stuff that happened in 2008. I mean, we don't have a UBC anymore thanks to that. So nothing is truly too big to fail. But like I said, just from a quality standpoint, I will watch it. And like I said, if it is good, then I will say, yeah, this was actually really good. But nothing has just been saying, you should watch this now because my Lord of the Rings fix has already been taken care of. I own like the big boxy DVDs of the extended versions with these little booklets of how it was made, and I'll even go so far as to say the Hobbit movies are good. I see why people don't like them. They're
Uh,
definitely a step down
I don't
from
like them near as much.
they're definitely a step down from the main trilogy, but I defend them more than I dislike them. But that'll be another conversation for another time. So, Jacob, if you don't have anything else to add, what else have you been watching?
Some other stuff I'd like to share. I've Going into my Alfred Hitchcock series, I've recently watched a movie called Secret Agent, which came out in 1936. It was kind of fun checking this one out, especially one I'd never heard of before. It's pretty much one of your early spy thriller movies. You got somebody going on a mission to take out this mole that's infiltrating their field, and this was set during. I was confused over the timeline because I thought it was set in like that present time, which was like beginnings of World War II, because they're going against the Germans, but it's actually set during World War One. The context wasn't really made quite clear in this movie. There's like a romance that gets thrown in there, and there's betrayals and double crosses. There are some really good sequences in this movie. My personal favorite sequence of tension that Hitchcock provides in this movie, there's a sequence where our main characters are hanging out in the church waiting for their contact. And while they're talking and waiting for the contact, they notice that the guy in the organ is playing a note too loud and too long. And it's starting to get really annoying. They're like, what's up with that? And they go up to the organ player and they find out not only is that their contact, but the contact had been murdered and the contact is just laying down on the organ going, Durr! That is a dope scene. I really dug that. There's like a train crash near the end, which had some pretty good practical effect work and some other good sequences along the way. The acting is pretty solid. Peter Lorre is in this movie, and he's one of the supporting players. He plays a character named the General, and he's like the standout character in the whole movie because he's Peter Lorre. The movie itself is kind of a mixed bag. As while I enjoy some of the individual sequences, there's not really that much urgency in the plot because a lot of the focus is away from the spy thriller stuff and more so on the on and off romance. The two main characters have to pretend to be a married couple so they can uh, be covert as possible. And there's like, what do they, don't they love each other type thing. And that got a little annoying. I thought that kind of took away from like some of the tension in the story. There's also a twist in the movie that did not really work for me, like who the mole was. I'm like, that that was pretty random. I wasn't too crazy about that twist. So it's not one of Hitchcock's best movies, but I will give it credit because it came out during that time when people were starting to pay attention to Alfred Hitchcock, and that he's just a few movies away from making his big break movie, which was Rebecca. So this one was all right. It's just not amazing or anything.
I can just imagine some other person hearing this dude on the organ and he's like, dude, you're flat. Like, go up. You're flat. What did I tell you? You're flat. Oh, you're more than flat. I could just imagine someone walking up and there and be like, someone needs to call the cops. This guy is not gonna make it.
Oh yeah, that was easily the scene that stood out the most in an otherwise bleh movie.
Oh, well, at least we're out of the doldrums of Hitchcock, right?
Oh yeah, I haven't had any like really terrible movies in a while. The last one I didn't care for was when he tried making a musicalized biopic on the guy who made the Blue Danube, which yeah, that was not a good one.
Okay.
That one-
Ah,
yeah, well,
the 20s. You just had to be there.
yeah. Um, Then on my Tom Hanks series, another video that's actually dropping on my channel, I recently rewatched Sully, which was an awesome movie that came out a few years ago, 2016, directed by Clint Eastwood. I've always been a fan of this movie. I remember seeing it for the first time in theaters and being on edge when they actually did recreate the plane crash that Captain Sullenberger was flying, and the big miracle on the Hudson where he crashed into the Hudson River and all the passengers survived. A really epic rescue mission. Nobody was harmed intensely, and it was a really epic day for all involved. And I thought Clint Eastwood did a great job at doing a great job at recreating that event, both visually and through the suspense and tension of it all. But I really like the way he decided to approach the story and focus more on a character study, more so on the aftermath of the miracle on the Hudson, where like there's the media coverage that's going after him, and there's like this investigation going on after the fact. Like there's people in that field that are like, there's probably other methods he could have done instead of crashing it in the Hudson River. And so there's like this conflict on whether he actually is a true hero or not, and whether um, he's a good pilot and stuff like that. And I really like the exploration of character, all in a pretty tight runtime. Like this movie's only an hour and a half long, and most biopics like that tend to go on a little bit longer to try to be as excessive as possible in telling this guy's story. But no, Clint Eastwood kept it tight and focused the story on what it needs to be told. You got the miracle on the Hudson and the aftermath, and you have the payoff in that. And I thought it was a very satisfying movie. Tom Hanks is terrific as Sullenberger. He, especially in these like biopic roles he's been doing lately, where he's playing real characters, he does a great job of transforming into the person he's playing and feeling like the actual person on screen. And it's no exception in this movie. Rewatching it, I always forget Aaron Eckhart is in this movie. He was the co-pilot of Sullenberger. And Aaron Eckhart, I'd say, is a criminally underrated actor. Like, people forget how awesome he was as Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. He played the most tragic character in that whole movie, and his performance should be commended, much like Heath Ledger, if I'm being honest. And he's really good in this movie as well. I do highly enjoy Sully. I think the end's a little too abrupt for my liking, but it's still a satisfying payoff of story. And I thought it was pretty good. I've always enjoyed it a couple times I've seen it, and it's a great watch and a great true story that was told.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of this movie. I have not seen it in a good long while, but I remember really liking it. I love the line where Sully says, "I spent over 4,000 hours, or some ungodly length of time in the air," and he said, "I've spent so many hours in the air, and I'll only be remembered for 410 seconds or something like that. And it really does hit you because the only reason we know Sully is because of this. And it's kind of infuriating, this board, just these armchair quarterbacks going like, you could have done it a whole lot better. Like, people, the dude literally landed a plane. We're not talking about like a paper plane or like an RC plane. We're talking about like a Boeing 747, landing that in a river because there was nowhere else for him to put it. It's not like they could land on the highway with people. Just there was no other viable option. He had to do what he had to do, and he did it about as good a fashion as possible with, fortunately, a lot of survivors. Like, he should have been like given some kind of medal for that, and just for like Anna Gunn and this whole committee just to be like, you could have done it a little better. As like, thank you, bunch of people who weren't even there. It's like, you're the type of people who wake up on third base thinking you hit a triple. But anyway, that's just me personally. And yeah, like you said, Aaron Eckhart is a very underrated actor. He's so good in everything, and I don't think people talk about him nearly enough. I recommend that everyone check out this movie called Thank You for Smoking. It was directed by Jason Reitman. If you like, say, Ghostbusters Afterlife, this was the stuff he was doing before he was doing that. I recommend you all check that movie out. I won't say what it's about. It's about the tobacco lobby, but it's way more interesting than that. Aaron Eckhart gives his best performance in that, in my so humble opinion.
Yeah, that's been on my radar for a good while. I've never actually seen that one.
Yeah, it's really good, and it'll almost convince you to take up smoking, which I know it sounds really bizarre, but just watch the movie for yourself.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. All right, and then I think the last one I'm going to share before I hand it over to you is I'm going to continue on in my recap of Downton Abbey because I sung the praises out of episode 1 2 weeks ago. I watched episode 2, and that episode I thought was pretty enjoyable. The thing that fascinated me the most about that one is we get to spend time on the new heir to Downton Abbey, who's played by Dan Stevens. It's really cool seeing him on this show, especially considering I've been familiar with some of his other roles. Most notably, he was the Beast in Disney's live-action version of Beauty and the Beast. It was cool seeing him, play the role that made him become a pretty well-respected actor, and I really enjoyed his character here. Someone who's not as familiar about the royal lifestyle of British society. He was more of a middle class worker, and he wants to bring his bag of tricks into Downton Abbey, but he's clashing with the other characters who thinks he doesn't belong. He's like an outsider. The conversation I remember distinctly is where he's talking to Maggie Smith's character. He's like, I'm going to do my day job during the day, and I'll come here on the weekend and work. And she's like, what's a weekend? I'm like, come on, McGonagall, you should know what a weekend is. I'm sure they had them at Hogwarts. But I didn't think there was a couple of stuff like side plots in the episode that didn't really invest me none. Like there was one where like the butler, we get to find out about his past, and there was like a blackmail scheme involved about, he wasn't as royal as the other characters made him out to believe because he had like this like past in a circus or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's interesting learning about the character's past and like his regrets of that, and he fears that people aren't gonna love him because he's not as royal as the other characters think he is, and that there's a little bit of acceptance in some of the other characters. I'm like, I get that's fine, but I kind of like seeing the main story with Dan Stevens. Like that was like the main focus, and some of the side plots were just kind of boring to me, if I'm being honest. I think another one was like his mom, the nurse or whatever, trying to do stuff, and I'm like, it's not really for me. But when the episode delivers, it really delivers, and I'm still hooked, and I can't wait to see where the series goes from here. I guess it was a break that Thomas was not there, because I despised that character in the first episode. And I know you had said that he gets more likable as the series goes along. I'm still mad at him for what he did to Bates in episode 1, so I'm not fully convinced on him just yet. But I guess I'll take your word for it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, this is definitely a slow burn show. It takes a bit of time to get going, but once it does, oh man, there's a lot going on here. Especially towards the middle of the show. That's when things get real intense.
All right, and I'll be watching episode 3 sometime after we finish recording, and I'll work on those recap videos once again.
Very good. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts as the seasons go on.
All right, what have you been watching lately?
So I watched, excuse me. So I watched a couple of movies on the plane to Utah. One of them has been turned into a video on the channel, so go check out my thoughts on Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. And I have not seen this movie in a very long time. And so when I saw it on the choices, I was like, you know what? I think it's time for me to watch this again. And I'm so glad I chose that, because it's really, really good. It's not just a really good pirates movie. It's just a really good movie in general. There's actually a lot going on here, a lot to ask questions of and be appreciative of. I love Gore Verbinski, how he made a lot of the stuff practical. There is CGI, and it is a bit questionable, but it was 2003, so it mostly holds up. It's unfortunately that Johnny Depp is primarily known for the Amber Heard stuff. That's why he's in the news nowadays. But he was awesome in this role. I mean, he was nominated for an Oscar for it. That's how good he was in it. And it kind of broke his career a bit, because that's all he would pretty much play for like a decade or more. I mean, Captain Jack Sparrow's an Indian, the Lone Ranger, terrible. Captain Jack Sparrow as the dude from a soap opera, Dark Shadows. It was like, that's all he became known for. It's low-key kind of sad, but at the same time, I mean, he did Captain Jack so well that he almost typecasted himself, for lack of a better word. But yeah, Curse of the Black Pearl is so good. It's like that. It's Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jeffrey Rush. I'm going to be reviewing the rest of the Pirates movies. So next up is Dead Man's Chest. That I have not seen since theaters. So it's going to be interesting to see what I think of it, if it holds up or if it's not so good. But my mind has been leaning towards it has held up camp for quite some time. So it's going to be interesting to see when I do sit down and rewatch it this coming Thursday.
Yeah, funny story. My sister the other day did rewatch Dead Man's Chest just for fun. I caught a little bit of it, I think, after recording a podcast episode. And oh man, that movie still holds up pretty good. I do enjoy that one. Not as much as the first, but there's still some really awesome stuff in that movie. Like the CGI, especially for Davy Jones. Considering that came out in 2006, it looks like something you could see in some of your big CGI blockbusters today, because of how technically advanced it was. It's actually so impressive that visual was so ahead of its time. And also, I would say, out of all the Pirates movies, I think my favorite sword fight in the whole franchise has got to be in Dead Man's Chest, where like Captain Jack Sparrow and Will Turner and the Norrington character, they're all fighting over the chest. And there's this cool shot where they're fighting together on like this big spinny wheel thing. And I was like, how did they pull that off? And it looks so good practically. It was so awesome how they did that. That was a really amazing sequence. I can't wait to see your full thoughts on that movie. Back to the first one of my favorite Disney movies for sure, especially live action wise. I pretty much agree with everything you've said and more. It's a great story all around. I love Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. It's easily, in my opinion, the best thing he's ever done as an actor. Like, he completely embodies that character. I love his mannerisms. I love the fact that, he's you think he's like the stupidest character around, but he's also a secret genius at the same time. And he just pulls that off so well where you don't know what he's thinking next. And he's always very unpredictable. I love that. Will Turner's awesome. I love Elizabeth Swann. Jeffrey Rush's Barbossa might be the best villain in the whole Pirates franchise. And he for sure has the best pirate laugh that I've probably ever heard in these movies. What are you looking at? Back to work. It's an amazing movie. The action still holds up. You said the CGI was a little dated. I think the CGI still holds up pretty good considering it came out in 2003. Like, I've seen the film several times in my life, and you see like the CGI skeletons roaming about, and I think we're all like, yeah, that's actually pretty impressive how they did that. I think Gore Verbinski just has a very creative knack for unique visuals, and how he was able to get away with some of those in the Disney films beyond me, but you got to give him all the credit for that. An awesome movie. I'm glad you had a great renewed love for this franchise. I would say the first three movies are the best ones that Gore Verbinski directed. After he left and we had the most recent two, I mean, there's a couple of enjoyable aspects about them. I enjoy Johnny Depp all the way through, but the stories definitely weren't as consistent as after the original three. So,
Yeah, and one of my favorite lines of Black Pearl is when you see Barbossa in full like ghost mode, and he looks at Elizabeth Swann and is like, "You better start believing in ghost stories, Miss Turner, because you're in one." And he pops open the wine bottle and he downs it, but then the wine just tumbles out of him.
Yeah.
You're like, Disney.
Fun
for
I
the
quote
whole
that all the
time. But anyway, I'm looking forward to Dead Man's Chest. I hope it's good. And
Yeah.
then on the plane, I saw a movie called Another Round. This is a movie that came out in 2020, which, I mean, none of us really saw any new releases for obvious reasons. But I heard nothing but good things about Another Round. And so when I saw it on there, I was like, okay, I think now's a good time to see it. And it's actually really, really good. It's a Danish movie. It's all in Danish, so watch it in subtitles if you have to. I did. I guess I'm sacrilege, but I ended up watching it with the subtitles, and it helped me greatly. It's about Mads Mikkelsen and his three friends. They're all high school teachers. They're all kind of down in life, and so they all come up with, or will they learn of this theory that every human being was born with a blood alcohol level 0.05% of what it should be. And so they come up with this test of basically drinking 0.05% blood alcohol levels worth of alcohol a day. Basically, not completely like crap-faced drunk, but just enough alcohol to just be like, hello, hi. And so doing that for a good chunk of time. And when it comes to movies and alcoholism, it's kind of a hit and miss kind of thing. Sometimes it's like, oh, come on, really? Are you serious? But then there are others that are just a little too real for my liking. This kind of strikes the balance of being refreshingly honest about alcoholism while also kind of being like, okay, that's actually pretty cool what they did there. It strikes a balance, and I think it was handled very well. Like I said, Mads Mikkelsen is the main star here. He's the reason you're going to watch the movie, and he is really good. Seeing him in something like outside of, like, say, Hannibal or Doctor Strange or something like that is really refreshing, and you really do sympathize with him the most. And I guess talking about it is just a bit superfluous. All that I will say is that I recommend that everyone check it out. It's on Hulu right now, so if you have Hulu, just type in Another Round and you've got it. I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, I had heard of the movie when it came out back in 2020, but I didn't get a chance to see it. I had heard it was pretty good, and the consensus was that Mads Mikkelsen was awesome in it. If I get the chance, I'll probably check it out, but I guess just have to wait and see. I think of Mads Mikkelsen, and the first thing I think of is him playing one of the best Bond villains in the character of Le Chiffre in Casino Royale. And I love just how vulnerable even he can be as a villain, while he can be pretty sadistic. You know, he's pretty scared too because of the higher ups that are after him, because he's like the bank's debt collector who lost all his winnings pretty much. And the scene that always stands out when I think of Mads Mikkelsen is that brutal torture sequence where he grabs Bond and he strips Bond and smacks him in the sensitive areas. And I'm like, oh wow,
Oh,
this is
you
crazy.
know,
It
I
makes
saw
me hurt just thinking about.
I saw the movie in 2006 when it came out. I was 11. I had
Ooh,
no idea what was happening. I'm like, why are they cutting out the bottom of the chair? And it's like a couple years ago, in preparation for No Time to Die, it was like I understood what was happening, but it was like in that moment, I was like, okay, like I I just gotta cross my legs now for no particular reason. Because it's so like you don't see it, but the implication is there, and you're just it's one of those things where you just have to watch through your hands, even though all you're seeing is Daniel Craig. So, and he kind of laughs it off too. He's like, "Hey, can you? I have a bit of an itch. Can you get me over there?" I'm like, "Bro, you are being hit in the grapefruits right now with a rope, and that you're being sarcastic. There's a time and a place, my man, and this ain't it." And it took me a really long time to understand why Le Chiffre is like the best and most terrifying Bond villains, because he basically bets on terrorist attacks happening and him getting rich off of it. And the line that sealed it for me was after the whole thing in the Bahamas with the girl and unfortunately her death, when M is breaking down who Le Chiffre is, when she says the line, on 9/12, someone got rich. And I was just like, oh, oh my goodness. And it's just like you get the full scope of this dude bet on 9/11 happening and he made $1 million off of people's misery. Like this dude's got to go. He's got to go. That's all I got to say.
yeah, probably in my top five James Bond villains for sure. Very
Oh,
memorable performance.
easily top three by a country mile. There's actually some subpar Bond villains. Like I'm actually doing a bit of a rewatch of the James Bond movies I've watched. I guess this is as good a place as any to parlay into what I've been watching next. I've seen Doctor No and From Russia with Love, and Doctor No is a good villain, and honestly, the villain in From Russia with Love is just surprisingly Robert Shaw, who would
Yeah.
later be Quint from Jaws, and just talk about like complete performance 180. Because the dude in From Russia with Love is the same dude as the dude in Quint, who's the smelly sailor who drinks and hunt sharks. Like From Russia with Love, he's suave, he's well spoken, like he's ripped. You're just sitting there like, how are these the same people? It's crazy to think about. It's one of those things where it's like year one of college, year four of college. But Robert Shaw was just a great actor, and Doctor No is a movie that I like, but I used to like even more. It's one of those movies where it's like I feel like it's really slow. Like it's slow to get out of the gate. It is a weird opening with the three Jamaican dudes, and they turn out to be spies, which becomes fairly obvious. But at the same time, it's like this can be a bit faster. But From Russia with Love, I've actually grown to like a lot more, and I'm actually going to be watching Goldfinger very soon, which is honestly my favorite Bond movie of all time. Like I love Casino Royale; it's a very close second, but Goldfinger is just classic. It really is.
Yeah, those are all really good James Bond movies. I mean, my sister and I debate all the time on who the best James Bond is. I think we're debating on whether it's like Daniel Craig or Sean Connery. Jamie, my sister, loves the classiness of Sean Connery, and I love Sean Connery too. Don't get me wrong; he's like my second favorite. I've come to prefer what Daniel Craig mastered in these like modern, grittier James Bond movies. I love what he brought to the character. It gave a much more realism to the character than any of the actors before. But you can't have James Bond without Sean Connery, as he was the one who started it all and made the character the awesome character that he is. And Goldfinger's still like in my top 3 James Bond movies. So that movie's just classic with so many amazing sequences and one-liners. I definitely agree with you on Robert Shaw and From Russia with Love. He's such an awesome Bond villain, but I also got to highlight Rosa Klebb, who's just as scary of a Bond villain as Robert Shaw is. Like, they both go neck and neck on how intense characters they actually are in the overall story, especially with Rosa Klebb. There's like some dark undercurrents with her character, and especially how her relationship with the girl character, Tatiana, I think's her name, that's a little uncomfortable to watch. But it works because of just how creepy of a character that she actually is, and I highly enjoyed that one. It has a really awesome train brawl. Like for 1963, considering that got made then, is actually pretty impressive that it still holds up all these years later. It's very shocking to see that because most action sequences of the past don't really hold up well because you have these like awkward edits of like characters trying to punch each other, and sometimes it's sped up and it's like unintentionally goofy. But this sequence, is just so raw and gritty, and it looks like it could have belonged to any of like the modern like Bond movies or even the Jason Bourne movies. It's a really good sequence.
Yeah, and making a movie is very hard, and so I guess I'm not as critical as I often should be when it comes to filmmaking. But there is some parts in Doctor No where I'm just like, "Oh, come on! You just pushed the car down the mountainside. Those guys are not even close to the car." But I mean, it was the early '60s. They made a Michelangelo out of a lump of clay, so they give all of my respect.
Yeah,
Though,
there's still some good stuff. And I love the part where the villain's car goes down the cliff and it explodes, and the guy's like, "What's going on?" And Bond's like, "I think they were on their way to a funeral."
nice timing. And looking at Goldfinger clips, like Odd Job's offense doesn't really hold up all that much, except for the hat. That thing is just, oof, it just brutal stuff. But literally all that takes out James Bond is a chop to the neck. It's just like, really? That's what took him out? And I'm sure it was a martial arts thing, and if that is the case, then okay, sure. But from the angle they do it, it's just like, I'm almost hearing like Lavelle Crawford and like 2 chops to the throat. 2 chops to the throat. so there's some parts of it that definitely have not held up, but I do love the Connery Bond movies. They hold a special place in my heart. I'm not looking forward to rewatching You Only Live Twice.
Oh
no.
Oh no. Asian Bond.
Oh God.
That was bad even in 1960 standards. I don't know what the producers were thinking on that one. Like even like Sean Connery just looks so uncomfortable doing that. Like the first thing you see him in that disguise, he just looks so angry that he wants to punch the cameraman. It's kind of funny to watch, but you're like, who came up with that?
You just see the gears turning in his head of like, as soon as this camera cuts, I'm going to call my agent and we're going to be having a long conversation. Yeah, I love the look on his face there. And the idea of Robert Shaw and Sean Connery being in a movie together, the alcohol budget must have been bigger than the actual budget. That and the cigarette budget. I'm sure they smoked more on that set. You could fill like an Olympic swimming pool with the amount of cigarettes that they smoked. But anyway, that's
you have a martini. You have a martini. You have a martini.
That and bourbon and tequila probably and whiskey undoubtedly. Just all like Stone Cold Steve Austin levels of alcohol. Just give them all like just all the booze. But anyway, that's what I have been watching lately. So Jacob, let's dive into the finale of Daredevil season 1. It has been an arduous journey, but we have finally made it to the tail end of Daredevil season 1. Everything has come to a head. Fisk's empire has collapsed, and we get the battle of Daredevil finally in the red suit against Prime angry Kingpin. His love was taken away from him almost by Bob Gunton, and he got an elevator shaft for his trouble. So it's literally the irresistible force and the immovable object. And I forgot how fun this finale is, and it wraps up everything so incredibly well that actually we're watching Obi-Wan at the time of this, and I'm just like, you know what? Netflix got it. These people did not, but we'll save that for the Obi-Wan discussion. But anyway, Jacob, what did you think of Daredevil, the season 1 finale?
I thought it was a lot of fun. Like you said, it did a good job at taking everything that was set up throughout the course of these 13 episodes and paying it off pretty nicely. It was fun seeing Daredevil finally get the red suit. I had seen online some people did not like the red suit for some reason. I don't know how comic accurate the suit was. I'm a newbie to this. I thought the suit was pretty dope. I thought it was cool seeing him jump around and kick and do his awesome action with Kingpin. That final battle was actually pretty fun. I've been a fan of the street level action throughout the course of this series, and this final fight was actually pretty good. There's some other good stuff that was paid off pretty well too, especially Matt and Foggy's relationship getting back together. They have a little bit of hiccups and disagreements, but at least they're back in the same law office again, doing the awesome stuff together, and they have a bit of a mutual respect. And it was cool seeing that pay off in this final episode. It was also fun seeing Kingpin get his comeuppance on the Bob Gunton character, the Shawshank actor, when he finds out he was part of that plot to kill Vanessa. That death I thought was pretty satisfying. Not as brutal as some of the other deaths Kingpin has done, but still pretty satisfying nonetheless. With an elevator shaft, that was a really intense conversation that I was really getting into. I'm kind of curious about. I'm sure we'll see Wilson Fisk in other seasons. I'm pretty sure, especially with where it's going to take him and Vanessa. There's still some unanswered stuff there because she pretty much left the thing unscathed. I'm curious which that's going to be in future seasons. I'm really curious about that. But this was a very well done episode. Like I said, it paid off the other 12 episodes well. And I actually just filmed a video review for my channel, which will drop, I'd like to say, maybe in the next week or so for my Superhero Saturday series. But a little tease of what I'm going to say there is I feel like with this series, it took its time to tell its story. There were some slow moments in there, but it paid off really nicely. Compare it to something like Moon Knight. Moon Knight was a show I was really getting into, but because it was sandwiched in like a 6-episode run, it just had the good build up, but it just fell apart in the last episode to where I was incredibly underwhelmed and frustrated by the show as a whole. Whereas Daredevil, on the other hand, took the time because it had the right balance of episodes to have a great origin story, continue to grow the character, and have him pay off and be an awesome character by the end of the season and getting me excited to see more adventures with this character. I thought it was a very awesome series overall. I think I enjoy season 1 of Daredevil over all of the Disney Plus Marvel shows. No disrespect to those shows, as I did really enjoy, especially Loki, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and What If. I think are great shows in their own right. But Daredevil really did something really special, and I highly, highly enjoyed this series.
Yeah, the Disney Plus shows are playing checkers. The Netflix shows are playing chess. That's all I will say here. But I'm so glad that you really liked Daredevil season 1. We are going to be continuing our path of reviewing the former Marvel Netflix shows. And in preparation for this, I asked Jacob if we wanted to go into season 2 or to go in a more timeline order according to the shows. And I found a site that has a bit of a timeline. So we're going to skip Daredevil season 2 for now and we're going to explore Jessica Jones season 1. And I've actually only seen the first episode, so I'm going in just as blind as Jacob is. So it's going to be really fascinating when we do cover that starting next week. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
All right, well, let's get into the main event of the evening and talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi, episodes 4 and 5. And oh boy, talk about a steep dip in quality, at least in my opinion, because episode 3 was so awesome. Like, it gave us exactly what we wanted: Obi-Wan versus Vader one more time. And it's like, I felt like with episode 4 and episode 5, 4 especially, they ran out of things to do. And I feel like they're just kind of doing this for the remainder of the series. Now, by the time this comes out, 6 will have dropped, so that could be actually quite good. So here's to fingers crossed that it is actually good. But I don't know. It's like the first half of the series was great, and then it's like the second half has just been like a steep decline in quality. Am I off base, Jacob?
I think we're going to disagree on this one. I will say episode 4 was the weakest episode. I do think of the ones, that one seemed the most filler because it's just a random rescue mission. Leia gets abducted again, and Obi-Wan comes back to pretty much rescue her again. We saw that already in episode 2. I still enjoyed the mission. I thought there was some really cool stuff. I loved Obi-Wan's slowly getting back into high gear once again, especially after the big defeat with Vader. I love when he was doing his sneak attacks and doing moves that he got from Darth Maul, in a way, taking out those stormtroopers left and right. That was awesome. And I like some of the other individual moments. The interrogation scene with Leia and Reva, I thought was actually really good. The acting from both of those actors was really intense to watch, and you could see that they were really getting into their characters in that scene. I could have done without some of the humor. Some of the humor felt forced in this episode. Like, I think there was this joke involving I forget the name of the character, but like the other female character that was assisting Obi-Wan, who was the spy. There was some cringe humor involving her that just seemed kind of off base, where she's like, "Hey, you can refer to me as sir," and I'm like, why are we doing gender politics humor in Star Wars? That was a bit out of place, but the rest of the episode was a lot of fun. The action was great. I did enjoy the visuals in that. It was easily the weakest, I would agree, but it was still fun for what it is. I thought episode 5 was just as good as the first 3 episodes, personally, because we go back into the main narrative. I love that we actually got flashbacks with Obi-Wan and Anakin. We get this really awesome training mission that they were in. I think people complain that Hayden Christensen looked off, like they didn't do like any de-aging or anything, and it looked like 40-year-old Anakin Skywalker, but didn't bother me none. It was still awesome seeing Hayden reprise his role and actually get a very warm, awesome reception this time. I actually enjoyed seeing that training play out and how that flashback carried in on the plot of the episode. How, Obi-Wan and how he uses that, Anakin uses that, lost my tongue there. I can speak. How Obi-Wan used that training sequence to visualize Darth Vader's next move. And I thought there was like some really cool maneuvering tactics that were used in that situation. It was really cool seeing that unfold. And I especially love learning more about Reva in this episode. We learned that she was a youngling who was a victim of Order 66. She had a vendetta against Anakin and used the Empire as a tool to get to Vader while still being an evil character in her own right. That was actually a really smart and original idea for a villainous character. And that makes me appreciate and empathize with the character a little bit more. And then I love the big battle with Reva and Vader. It's one of the coolest things I've seen Darth Vader do. Like, he's taking this character out even without holding a lightsaber. He's just using the Force. And she's like going all at him, and he's just like, not today, not today. And I'm like, oh, that is some good stuff. Say what you will about Star Wars in general, particularly Disney Star Wars, but they've given us some great Darth Vader stuff. Between that, the fight we got in Episode 3, and then that hallway scene in Rogue One, Darth Vader has been dope in these Star Wars series and movies that we've seen him in. It's been a great ride. I'm hoping the finale does not disappoint me like Moon Knight did. I want to see the rematch that they've been teasing about since the show was announced. I hope it actually delivers. I hope they don't rush things in this finale because it looks like they got a lot to tie in. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But personally, I have loved this series. I think it's been really awesome. I love that we got Hayden back and Ewan back. And it's felt like a very pivotal chapter in the world of Star Wars. It kind of fills in some of the gaps between episodes 3 and 4 and actually improves a lot of these movies at the end of the day, especially with a lot of these characters like Obi-Wan and Anakin, Vader, and Leia. It's actually been a really awesome series, at least for me, at least.
Well, by the time that we are recording this, it is Monday, so episode 6 is not dropped yet. It will drop the day that it drops, and we will cover the finale on next week's episode. But I will say definitively that if episode 6 is really good, then I will walk back my stance a bit. Because, like I said, I thought 4 was not really that good. I thought it could have been edited out of the show entirely, and it would have been no real difference. I think I was a bit harsh on episode 5 when I was initially introducing this segment, because I actually did enjoy parts of it. I'm a bit of a defender of the de-aging. I thought it was actually handled quite well. I think Hayden Christensen looks really, really good for his age. Not to say that he's like an old man, but what I will say is that farming life has clearly done him very well. That's all I will say. And I do love how they treat Vader here. Like you said, say what you want to about Disney Star Wars, they know exactly what they're doing with Darth Vader. When you see him on the premises, your best bet is to run because he is so OP, it's just not even funny. Like he doesn't go around you, he goes through you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. Vader has done some really awesome stuff in this series, and it was so frustrating that fans were already crapping on this show early on, saying, "Oh, it's contradicting previous stuff. Like Reva killed off the Grand Inquisitor, but that character was supposed to be in Rebels 6 years later. Why did she do that?" Well, did that answer your question? He came back for his revenge plan once Vader, could put the lightsaber through her. I'm like, and he had that really awesome revenge line. I'm like, Dave Filoni knows what he's doing. That's all I'm gonna say there. I don't get some of the hate for this series. I get if you criticize plot holes in the narrative, that's just nitpicky stuff. But I don't get why people say this is betraying the other Star Wars movies. I think it's enhancing the other Star Wars movies. Sometimes you can't satisfy your Star Wars fandom. The biggest critics of Star Wars sometimes are the fans.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that one. And yeah, like I said, that's a cruel way to leave Reva, though, at the end, where she's like, she got stabbed, but she's not dead. So she's just lying there while Rupert Friend is all there like, and you thought that I was dead. I'm like, wow, that's just cold. That is so entirely cold. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the finale. And so I think I will say that, like I said, 4 was not great. However, 5 was a bit of a return to form. So I will say that the show has been hit or miss. But when it has hit, it has really hit. But what I will leave off with is this. What did you all think of episodes 4 and 5, and where do you think the finale is going to go? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We would love to read what you would have to say. And that's it. That's another episode in the books. Thank you, Jacob, as always. It is a pleasure. Where can people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my 2 YouTube channels. My second channel, Storytime with Jacob, is where I do book reviews and read-alongs. I'm getting back on that channel once again after the camping hiatus with my continued read-alongs of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And then, of course, on my main channel is where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, and other fun stuff. I got a lot of awesome videos coming your way this week. Speaking of Johnny Depp, I did a really awesome video lately where I did like a compilation reel of all the movies Johnny Depp has starred in, from A Nightmare on Elm Street all the way to his most recent release, a film called Minamata, which recently came out earlier this year, 2022. Very small movie. That is one of the best videos I think I've ever made on the channel. I love making these like spotlight sizzle reel videos highlighting directors and actors and stuff like that. And being a fan of Johnny Depp for so long, it was really awesome going to create that video and getting all the footage together, editing it, piecing it together, and discovering some hidden gem movies along the way that I've never even heard of. So that was a video it's one of the videos I'm the most proud of. So if you haven't seen that video already, I definitely recommend checking it out. Other videos I got on the channel that's dropping this week, like I said, my episode 2 recap review of Downton Abbey. I did another video that just recently dropped is my review of Alfred Hitchcock's film Secret Agent. I also have a review coming this week for a Billy Wilder film called The Front Page, starring Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. That film was so-so. I got a vlog in the movies video this week where I do a first-time reaction to a faith-based film called Facing the Giants. I definitely have a lot to say on that film. There's some good, some bad. Some other stuff coming on the channel. I'll be doing a celebrating Disney video for Brother Bear, which is one of the most criminally underrated Disney movies of my childhood. I got a Superhero Saturdays review coming this week for The Batman. And another announcement that I'll be making. This first video will have already dropped as a live stream, which will be for the Tuesday. We're recording this on a Monday, but I'm actually starting a podcast over on my channel with Ryan Cam. We're discussing DreamWorks. So the first video will have already dropped, so check out the replay if you missed it live. We will be sharing like our thoughts on DreamWorks as a whole, sharing some of our best memories with some of these movies, discussing a little bit about the history of DreamWorks and some of our thoughts on the future of DreamWorks going forward. So we're starting a monthly podcast where after the first episode, we'll be diving into all of the DreamWorks movies, starting with Ants and going all the way to whatever their most recent film is. So it's going to be an awesome time. Definitely check that podcast out. And check out my channel and all the awesome content that's over on it. Really awesome, exciting growth. I think I saw earlier today I'm at 580 subscribers. It's been an awesome ride, and I thank you all for being a part of my channel. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, definitely do so as well, and check out the other awesome content that's over there.
Yes, do subscribe to him, and I'm very happy to be discussing DreamWorks with you. I'm looking forward to doing that, and that'll be that announcement video will be Tuesday. It has already happened by the time this uploads.
Yeah.
Thinking ahead, it's a thing. But as far as this channel goes, I dropped a Twilight Zone vlog on the episode called The Odyssey of Flight 33. Be sure to check that out. And I'll also be covering Elvis and the Black Phone. I'm going to try and do both of them, but look forward to my thoughts there. And then this Sunday will be that Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest video. So be on the lookout for that as well. But thank you all so much for watching. We really greatly appreciate it. That is Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam, and we will see you in the next one. Take care.